What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods, and man, we had to get this episode out ASAP this morning. I know it's early as this is dropping, but last night, the college football world, man, never rests, especially after the last week of the regular season. We had breaking news as Brian Kelly has now been reported to be the next head coach at LSU. By now, it's just about being confirmed. An official announcement will be probably made Tuesday, sometime tonight on Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday. But this was one of the biggest head coach openings in the country. And it was officially filled with Brian Kelly. I mean, this comes almost 3 months after LSU announced their separation agreement between the program and Coach Ed Orgeron on the 17th of October. And also comes on the heel of a lot of positive momentum. Not only does LSU land one of the winningest coaches in the country right now, they also ended their season with a huge upset over number 15 Texas A&M in Death Valley. They finished 6-6 on the season, 3-5 in the conference, so they were tied for last in the SEC West. And Kelly's going to be tasked with turning this program into bona fide SEC championship contenders again. But this has been confirmed because Kelly's official message to his Notre Dame team via Teamworks was leaked on Monday night. And the official message stated that he will be meeting with his team on Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. As this episode, as you might be watching, that meeting could have already happened. But the quote from his message to his team says, "Men, let me first apologize for the late night text, and more importantly, for not being able to share the news with you in person that I will be leaving Notre Dame. I am flying back to South Bend tonight to be able to meet with you in the morning, but the news broke late today, and I am sorry you found out through social media and or news reports. I will have more to share when we meet tomorrow at 7 a.m. But for now, just know that my love for you all is limitless, and I am so proud of all that you have accomplished. Our program is elite because of your hard work and commitment, and I know that you will continue it. I will share more in the morning when we meet again. My sincere apologies for not being able to be the one to share this news directly with you, Coach Kelly." So that's the message he shared with his players. As you know, the Volume Sports has a podcast, a Garage podcast with Kyle Hamilton, some other Notre Dame players. They dropped an emergency episode on Monday night, man. And it was interesting to see how they all reacted to the news. One kid mentioned that he had players from other schools already texted him. He mentioned specifically people. There was already one of his guys already texted him to come to Jackson State. Other schools were saying come to other SEC programs and this and that. So he's already being recruited by other players to places. And he was like, "Man, I committed to Notre Dame, not just Coach Kelly." But it was interesting to see how they interacted. But one Notre Dame assistant coach told a news source last night as well that he got the report on his phone as he was walking out of the front door of a recruit's house, and that he made it look terrible and made him look like quote unquote an idiot in front of that family. So many players, coaches, recruits were left shocked by the news out of Baton Rouge on Monday night. But according to Brody Miller of The Athletic, LSU and Kelly have almost agreed upon a 10-year deal worth over $100 million, and Kelly will be immediately stepping into the head coaching role at LSU. At Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, former Cincinnati D coordinator, current Notre Dame D coordinator, will be taking over the interim head coach duties for the Fighting Irish for their bowl game, or if all chaos happens, even their college football playoff run, depending on what happens in this weekend's games. And on top of that, there are a lot of reports that Marcus Freeman could be the head football coach at Notre Dame. There's a lot of internal pressure to promote him. I'll have more on that episode probably tomorrow in terms of the Notre Dame coaching opening. Now, you might be asking, if you're not an LSU fan, or if you're an LSU fan, why was Brian Kelly the choice for the job? Now, the upside, if anyone's been watching college football, is obvious. Kelly's going to go down as the winningest coach in Notre Dame football history. He's turned multiple programs into championship caliber programs throughout his long coaching career. It started as a head coach, Grand Valley State, 1991 to 2003. had 6 conference championships. He had 2 Division II national titles in back-to-back years in '02 and '03. It was a 2-time D2 Coach of the Year before he took the job at Central Michigan and took the Chippewas from a 4-7 team into MAC champions in only 2 seasons, won that one MAC championship in '06, then took the job at Cincinnati, 34-6 overall record, won 2 consecutive Big East Conference championships from '08 to '09, won the Home Depot Coach of the Year award in '09, was a 3-time Big East Coach of the Year, and he led Cincinnati to the Orange and Sugar Bowl in back-to-back years, including a final finish of number 4 in the 2009 AP poll. So he's turned all these programs into winning programs, and he's won everywhere he's went, and that includes Notre Dame. 2010 to 2021, 92-39 overall record, only 1 losing season in 12 seasons as the head coach for the Fighting Irish, had a BCS national title appearance in 2012, 2 college football playoff appearances, was a 2-time AP Coach of the Year, won the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year, a 2-time Home Depot Coach of the Year, and in 1 season during the COVID year was the ACC Coach of the Year as well. So he's done it everywhere he's been. He's a culture builder, he's a recruiter, and just overall, he's one of the most experienced and winningest head coaches in college football. He's the 3rd winningest coach in the country right now in terms of active FBS head coaches. And not only has he won at every school he's been at, he's shown an ability to recruit top talent, even with high academic standards like at Notre Dame. It's very hard for some people to qualify to get into Notre Dame. And he's led the Fighting Irish to 8 top 20 finishes in the past 10 years. So Brian Kelly has already proven he can do this. He had 3 top 20 finishes at Cincinnati, has completed rebuilds at both levels, has national title appearances at both levels of D1 and D2. And so for me, I understand why the hype behind this hire so much I understand how big of a prestige. I said on the LSU episode when this first happened, the opening happened, that this was the top probably 3 or 4 job in college football potentially. But it's still extremely hard to steal a coach from Notre Dame who's so established, who's the winningest coach in school history, who nobody even thought he was looking to leave. The fact that they pulled this off was impressive, and I really do think this was a solid hire for LSU. And listen, the expectations at Notre Dame might be a step below what they are at LSU, but they are still high compared to some of the other schools around the country. So the pressure of winning should not rattle Kelly. And he has the experience of fighting these SEC teams on the recruiting trail and has a lot of experience of seeing them in bowl games, seeing them in the playoffs. I mean, he's beat LSU twice in the postseason. And there's an argument that he did it with lesser talent. He can recruit offensive linemen at a high level. He's always had a solid quarterback. His defense, he's had a great knack of hiring great defensive coordinators. You look at Clark Lee, now the head coach at Vanderbilt, and then he replaces him with Marcus Freeman, who he beat out LSU to hire, and now Marcus Freeman might be the head coach at waiting at Notre Dame. So Brian Kelly has done this, and I like his staff hiring so far thus far in his career. So I would imagine he's going to hire very productive staff at LSU. That's really going to be the telltale sign of how I really feel about this hire. Now, you're looking at the recruiting impact for the Tigers and Kelly. The recruiting impact could be extremely interesting. The Tigers currently are 15th in the country for the 2022 cycle. That's 6th in the SEC. So Kelly will have some work ahead of them. LSU standards are up there, man. They always want to be recruiting in like the top 3 of the SEC. But the cornerstones of the class are there. The number one thing for Kelly right now is to keep 5-star offensive tackle Will Campbell and 5-star QB Walker Howard in the class. Those are the crown jewels, and that's the number one priority. You also have the number 1 tight end in the country, Jake Johnson. If you can keep those 3 guys and make them your cornerstones of the class, I think Kelly's going to escape this recruiting cycle with a very solid class to come in and build upon moving forward. This is your cornerstone class. You have your cornerstone players within the class. You have to keep them. And then on top of that, you look at the other side of it. The Fighting Irish and Brian Kelly were recruiting at the highest level they ever have been. They had their best class in program history to this point in the cycle. Number 4 in the country, easily the number 1 independent class in the country, and would have been one of the best in the SEC as well. And it's going to be interesting to see if any of these recruits can be convinced by Kelly to come down to Baton Rouge with them. You're looking at some of these prospects: 5-star Jalen Sneed, the number 32 overall player in the country; 4-star CJ Williams at wide receiver; Joshua Burnham, the 117th overall player; Tobias Merriweather. And then also in the 2023 class, Kelly already had a commitment from Drake Bowen, a 5-star linebacker, number 32 overall in the country, and he was already considering coming to the SEC. It was down to Notre Dame and Auburn and Clemson in his final 3, and Auburn was a close second. Visited the Plains multiple times, so Bowen would also like to play in the SEC. So it'd be interesting to see if Kelly could flip him for next year's class for LSU and give them another great 5-star linebacker. So this is going to be interesting to see. And then on top of that, there were some young players on Notre Dame's squad that could come down to Baton Rouge to finish their career playing for Kelly. And we're going to have to see how that works. But his offensive line development has been a staple at Notre Dame. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can continue that in Baton Rouge. But Brian Kelly's class currently has commitments across the country, man. And I think that was the selling point. I've heard this narrative on a few other shows that Brian Kelly's not the best recruiter. He's back-to-back top 10 classes these past 2 years, had the number 4 class in the country. And the huge selling point for LSU is he can recruit from every state. You have to land the top prospects to compete in the SEC regardless of where they are located in the country. Now, the question does remain. I'll give people this. The question remains if he can lock down LSU. That was something that Coach Ed Orgeron preached repeatedly about doing, something Les Miles did too. You have to lock down Louisiana if you're going to be successful at LSU. And that's something you have some question marks about Kelly about due to his lack of connections to the South. But he can recruit nationally, and he's done it at Notre Dame. And you look at his top 2022 recruits at Notre Dame: South Carolina, California, Michigan, Washington, Ohio, Missouri, Texas. They are from all over the country. And if he can bring all that to LSU, I think the Tigers have a great foundation to build upon their recruiting. He has to show he can dominate the Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas pipeline to LSU, though. That's going to be key for these next 2 classes because that's the key for LSU returning to the top of the SEC year in and year out in Baton Rouge, man. This program should never be finishing last in the SEC West. And I think Scott Woodward lived up to his promise. He said, we're going to have a splash higher. I do think there was some fire behind that smoke with Lincoln Riley. Now, what happened behind the scenes, I can't tell you. But if your second option is the 3rd winningest head coach in college football, I would say that's a pretty damn good list of candidates that you had on your plate. Now, in terms of the grade to end this episode, man, for me, I've been given so many A's and A pluses, man. I'm going to slide this one in A minus, maybe an A. The only reason I would say an A minus is due to the lack of Southern connections. I want to see if Kelly can lock down the state of Louisiana. That's the only doubt I have. And also, I need to see him win big games against the top programs. Everyone has been so critical of Notre Dame and him in the college football playoffs and things like that. So I want to see him win those games because year in and year out, you're going to have to beat the Alabamas, beat the Georgias, beat the Floridas. And then if you get to the college football playoff, you're going to have to beat the Clemsons, the Ohio States. And that's something that a lot of people want to see if Notre Dame can do, or see that Kelly can do year in and year out because he didn't do it consistently enough at Notre Dame. So an A minus, man. But in terms of achievements and just status and almost clout behind the hire, man, they hit this one out of the park. I know some LSU fans are a little bit concerned due to his age. I don't think that's as big of concern, man. The lifespan on coaches now is so short that I think 60 is still relatively okay. I mean, if you nowadays, man, if you get 5 to 10 years out of a coach, you exceeded the expectations. Most coaches barely make it 3 years anymore. So I don't think that age 60 is as big of a deal as people would like to make it seem. But the only concern I have is, can he recruit Louisiana and lock it down? But outside of that, man, he's a proven culture builder, a program builder, and he can bring in those national recruits. And so I think overall LSU and Scott Woodward hit this one out of the park. But guys, Make sure to subscribe to the channel now. Hit the like button on the video, man, if you would, and comment your takeaways on this hire. What would you grade it? And what are your takeaways from LSU and Brian Kelly? And what are your expectations for him moving forward in Baton Rouge, man? But I appreciate y'all tuning in early this Tuesday morning for all this breaking news, man. But listen, make sure to tune into the Blue Bloods this afternoon. Our SEC preview drops, and we're previewing all our other conference championship games throughout the week. And tune into our mailbag 6:30 p.m. Central tonight. I'm sure we're going to be talking this higher and the implications of that, and also the Notre Dame opening now. So make sure to tune into that. But until then, guys, the Blue Bloods are out.